we got clips galore from her today, because it's not just the economy that's an issue. It's not just inflation that's an issue. It's not just Ukraine, Russia that's an issue. It's not just China, Taiwan. It's not just the southern border. It's not just the drugs. It's not just your grocery prices going up. It's not just the fuel prices going up. I mean, you name it, you got it. It's going up in terms of prices. But Joe Biden is now shifting from the economy to shifting to abortion. And it's confusing for everybody in terms of what he's talking about with abortion, because he's just going, well, I want to codify Roe v. Wade, basically. I want to take what was within Roe v. Wade and make it into law. And he's saying that's why you need to go out and vote for the Democrats, which if there's any reason to go out to vote this election, these midterms, it's at least abortion and the economy. Hell, if you weren't going to go and get your booty out of the seat because of what Joe Biden's done these last, 18 months, at least abortion should make it, because the Democrats can do everything they can to get this sucker through in Congress. So you have Phil Wegmann here, my boy Phil, going up against Karine Jean-Pierre and calling out the fact that she's not answering his questions. I love the way he handles this. Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Wegmann from Real Clear Politics. Let's go ahead and roll.
Thank you, Karine. The president promised to send a bill to Congress to codify Roe earlier today. I've got two basic questions about that. Number one, would that bill simply codify Roe, or would it go farther and overturn individual state abortion restrictions? And then number two, are there any abortion restrictions at all that the president would support?
What the president is going to...
I just want to pause it. Great questions. We've heard other reporters ask Joe Biden and Karine Jean-Pierre this question before. Let's see if she answers.
do and wants to do and believes in doing is codifying Roe. He believes that is what it was, the law of the land, the constitutional right for almost 50 years, and he believes in its specific provisions was rightly decided. He has said this regularly, including right after Dobbs, and that has not changed.
Right, but that didn't answer either question. First of all, there are individual state restrictions on abortion on the books currently around the country. Some of those existed before the Dobbs case, before the overturn of Roe. Would the president, with this bill, codify Roe? Does he want that bill to go farther? And
I just answered that question. I just answered that question.
No, she didn't, Phil. I'm right there with you, brother. She did not answer your question. And if she did, she wasn't being clear. And we all know that's her favorite phrase. Well, let's be clear here. Let's be clear. Let's do this and that, but let's be clear. She wasn't clear at all, man. I'm glad you followed up here because she didn't answer your question.
Believes in Roe and how it stood before the Dobbs decision.
Okay, and then on the individual are there any restrictions whatsoever that the president would support when it comes to abortion?
He believes in the provisions that Roe had. And that's where he stands. I would suggest you reading it so you get a sense of what the president stands and what he wants to see.
All right, shifting to
again, we'll continue here because Phil does a phenomenal job in this line of questioning. She still didn't answer any of his questions. For somebody that always wants to be so clear, that should know the president, that's the mouthpiece of the leader of the free world, doesn't answer in terms of codifying Roe v. Wade, in terms of how that's going to affect the states. And we'd imagine because it's federal that it would subject the federal states to basically allowing abortions, and should not answer the fact regarding the whole idea of, does a guy have any limits when it comes to abortion? Do you just want this baby to come out full birth with hair and everything and just abort it still? Like, what is his limitations? Well, we're going with what Roe v. Wade says. Yeah, the guy says a lot of asinine things. He doesn't mean it. Hell, you've had a reverse course here, Karine, on many of the president's sayings. But if it's so clear, if it's so specific, if you can find it in Roe v. Wade, why don't you just tell us plainly what the hell it is? It's a gimmick, you guys. Who the hell knows what Joe Biden's talking about here? And we'll get to that in our last segment because, hell, nobody really knows what Joe's talking about here. Nobody really knows what the White House is talking about. But let's continue with Phil.
Different topic then. Why is it that the president was talking about nuclear Armageddon behind closed doors to political donors 2 weeks ago, rather than speaking directly with the American people about that topic?
Well, there was press. There were a few of your colleagues that were in the room.
Well, given the severity and the significance of that threat, isn't that something that the president should perhaps
Well, we've
address?
talked about
Just the donors should vote.
I mean, but there was press in the room. It's not like he was not saying it in secret. He knew that the press was in the room.
Did he though? I don't mean to make a joke out of this, but to be like, well, the president knew. The president also thought there was dead people in the crowd, Karine, and he was looking for them. So don't give me this, oh, well, he knew the press was there, because There's a lot of times where we think Joe Biden's there and he ain't all there. There's times when Joe Biden thinks there's people in the crowd that are dead that just aren't there. There's times where he thinks somebody is somebody else, of which they aren't. I don't know, maybe Kamala Harris being president, of which she's not. I don't know, maybe him running for Senate, even though he's running for president of the United States. But she's going to push this stuff on our boy Phil. I don't like it. I will always back Phil Wegmann up. Peter Doocy, the guys that speak for the American people. Again, I don't know if Phil's Democrat or Republican. I don't care. The guy does a damn good job, and I'm always going to be here to back the man up. Screw her.
At the time when he was making the comments, look, the president, we've talked about this. This is like 2 weeks ago conversation. We've talked about this in detail about how seriously.
She's going to come at us by saying this is 2 weeks ago conversation. She literally stops every one of her questions that's proposed to her with, oh, well, let's talk about what we've done. Let's talk about things that happened 2 years ago. Let's blame the Trump administration. Let's blame somebody else that something that happened 5 years ago. So this lady is just sitting here acting like a you-know-what to Phil Wegmann here that has great questions in terms of why is he so willing to talk behind closed doors, even though there's press in the room, about a possible Armageddon, which is a massive thing to just throw out there, of which you had John Kirby say, well, he didn't really receive any new intelligence to say something like that. But hey, it seems like we are going that direction to a bunch of donors, but you're not going to come out and talk to the American public about that? You think we would want to know if we're about to hit World War III, that we're about to have our major cities blown up by Putin? I don't know. It seems like a pretty important issue. Why would you just throw that out to donors? Fabulous question, Phil. I don't care what this lady says. I want answers just as much as you do.
We take Putin's saber rattling, Putin's comments about using nuclear weapons. That is something that we take seriously. Do we see anything at this time that causes us to move our strategic positioning? No, not at this time. But it matters that rhetoric is being used. And so the president has spoken to this. I have spoken to this. The National Security Advisor has spoken to this. Again, it was not in secret. The reason why you know that it happened is because there were reporters there. Go ahead.
You know, honestly, and let me know in the comments below, does anybody feel like she actually answered really any of his questions? I mean, she kind of did somewhat, but she's just playing it off of the fact, well, he's not saying it in secret. You had reporters there. And the fact that you know about it means it's not in secret. He didn't mention anything about secrecy. The question is that if it's such a massive thing to say, why would you just say it to a bunch of donors? Why would you not come tell the American people about it? And if it is such a massive issue, why didn't you do that? And if you're going to say Armageddon, the end of the world, that within itself is a major important issue. And you're going to just tell a bunch of donors that rather than tell, I don't know, people like us getting on the airwaves, maybe getting his ass on that podium, of which he still hasn't done. I would like to point that out. And our boy Phil Wegmann called that out a few weeks ago. Not necessarily the podium, but hey, like when he's going to do a one-on-one interview, can we get that man out there and maybe not hopped up on drugs from Jill Biden to get on that podium in front of the entire press and answer questions? Boy, oh boy, would that be a spectacle. We might have to do that live if it ever happens. If it happens. It's going on 2 years now, folks, and he's still yet to stand on that podium and answer anybody's questions. But fabulous job, Phil. Fabulous job, Peter Doocy. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.